Well, this is our database. It has some views like the ones that we saw a moment ago. They have books, they have authors, they have, I don't know, customers, etc., etc. If we have a look at one view, like the books one, it looks like this. It has several fields. Each of these fields in the view corresponds to a field that we will see in GraphQL. So we have a publisher ID, the title, the price, category, etc., etc., etc. Okay, we can execute it to verify that everything works. Okay, here's the data. All right, and we also have these associations between the different views. For example, authors books is an association which models the semantic association between authors and books. In this case, this semantic association is actually based on a foreign key that exists in the underlying PostgreSQL database, but it didn't need to be so. For example, we could be modeling an association that associated two views from different databases, so a foreign key couldn't exist between them. In this association, we can actually specify the roles in each of the endpoints of the association, which will correspond to the names of the fields, which we can see in the GraphQL schema afterwards. And we can see the cardinality of the association too. This is not something that is specifically oriented to GraphQL. It's something that exists in Denodo since quite a long ago. GraphQL makes use of it. Okay, so good. Let's open this. This is the GraphQL Playground. Okay, this is a generic client. This is a generic GraphQL client that allows us to perform queries against any GraphQL service. Okay, so the first thing that we see here is that we are attacking this URL. This URL is a URL from an application that is running on the Denodo web server for web applications. It's using the Denodo GraphQL Service application, and the endpoint is called GraphQL/bookstore. This means it is GraphQL/name of database. Bookstore is the name of our database, so that's the endpoint that we are pointing our requests to. If we see here in schema, what we can see is the actual schema that this GraphQL Playground application is being receiving from the GraphQL service in Denodo. So it's understanding what the GraphQL service is sending to it because it's specified in the GraphQL schema definition language. One of the things that we can see here is the queries that are allowed. So it's that special type query. We can see we have a query for books, another one for authors, revenue by author, revenue by book, store orders, customers, etc. So one operation, one query operation for each of the views that we have. Also, we have the arguments for each operation that we are going to be able to specify as a way of filtering. Okay, we also have some arguments that are synthetic that I'll explain later what they mean. And then for each of these, for example, books returns an array of books. We can see the type books itself, which models the GraphQL type, mirroring what we can see at the view on the Denodo side. So if we have ID and publisher ID fields in our view, we will also have fields here called ID and publisher ID, etc. All of these, we can see here, correspond to the fields that we could see in the view in Denodo. But then we have something like this, author, sales, and publisher, that are actually coming from the associations between books and other entities. From books and authors, we have author. From books and sales, we have sales. From books and publisher, we have publishers. These are fields that actually allow us to navigate the graph from one entity to another. And we will see how in a moment. So first query, most simple query that we want to execute here is, okay, I want the books, I want the titles of the books. Okay, this works. These are the titles of the books. I'm only getting the titles of the books. What if, for example, I wanted one specific book? Well, I can do something like this. GraphQL Playground, as it is receiving the schema from the GraphQL service, will allow me to do syntax completion. Okay, so I want a specific book which title is called Contact, for example. Let's have a look at it. Here it is. I only have the title, so it's not really useful. So I'll also have the category. Okay, it's science. It's science novel, but it's science. Okay. But what, for example, if I want to navigate? Okay, I don't want only the title and the category of the book. I also want to know who wrote it. So let's go here and say I want author, And for author, I want its author name. There we have it. The author of contact is Carl Sagan. Yeah, I'm navigating the relationship between books and author. I could also remove this if I wanted to get all the books. And here they are. They're all the books along with their authors. Okay, so this is interesting actually. Let's have a look at how this is being sent to Virtual Data Port. So if you go here to the Diagnostic and Monitoring tool, and to log in, I go to Nieva, which is the server. Okay, there it is. Now requests. Good. I'll perform this request again. Good. Let's have a look at it. Stop. This here is the query that the GraphQL service is actually sending to VDP. And you'll see it is a navigational query. So the fact that it is a navigational query means that it is actually using the associations, the semantic associations that I have defined in my virtual database in order to navigate the query. So I'm asking for the title and category from books, but also I'm asking it to navigate to its author name. And that's using the associations that I have defined in the virtual database. So I could, of course, be doing this with joins also, okay, but I would have to know about which specific join conditions would join the different entities. In this case, I don't need to know that. I'm just using the associations that already give me the semantical relationship between our users. And also it is interesting to know, or interesting to see, that I'm performing one single query. Okay, only one query is being sent to Denodo, even if actually what I'm asking it, the information that I'm asking for actually comes from two different views. Okay, we'll see how this is important in a moment. So, okay, let's do something a bit more, I don't know, a bit more fun. Let's go for authors. Of course, if I go for authors, all of this doesn't make any sense. And for each of the authors, I want, well, the author name, and I want the books that they have written. And for each of the books, I want the title, and also let's go to the publisher and know who is the publisher that published that book. So if I execute this, I'll have a double navigation as the one that we saw some slides ago. So I can see here for this author that he only has one book. In this book, I can see its title and its publisher name. Steven Pinker has 1, 2, 3, 4 books. And for these 4 books, I can also see the publisher name. Okay, so I'm navigating twice. And this is performing one single query to VDP.